all of this bringing up the rape so many years ago. I only went to one hearing before June because I didn't want to waste any more energy than I needed to and allow Mr. DeAngelo to take up space in my mind and my life. The hearing in June was the most important one. I heard him admit to the crime and the rape. And now finally, the end of this trauma is here. He's a horrible man, and none of us have to worry about him anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anybody else who wish to speak as to that incident? Go ahead, ma'am.
It's okay. Hello.
Good morning, ma'am.
Your Honor, thank you for the opportunity to make this statement here today. I'll admit that this is a daunting task, but one that is so important for me as I garner my courage and take another step toward closure. This statement is made on behalf of many people. It is for my sister, the other people seated here in this courtroom, the many brave victims and their families, listening or watching via live stream, and those who are not physically present here in this courtroom today, including my parents, my brother, my own husband and children, and my dearest friends. I also want to take a moment to express my deep gratitude to all the DAs, detectives, and law enforcement who worked tirelessly over 44 years to find the East Area rapist and to bring him to justice. When my sister texted me the morning of April 25th, 2018, to tell me that the East Area rapist had been captured, I couldn't believe it. I was stunned and chills ran through my body. My text back to her was, "Are they sure?" After over 4 decades, he was no longer a ghost, but a real living and breathing monster who was living just across town, hiding in plain sight. I was overwhelmed with both a sense of dread and at the same time, an immense sense of relief. I was literally shaking. After 42 years, there was finally a glimmer of justice. This horrific, terrorizing, and traumatic crime committed by the East Area rapist in July of '76 left a lifelong emotional scar that's invisible to anyone but me and my sister. I was 16 years old at the time. Although this emotional scar doesn't surface much during the day, after so many years, it comes back like clockwork every night when my head hits the pillow. It usually begins with a long litany of questions, accompanied by fear and worry, which run through my mind. Are all the windows shut and locked? I think so, but maybe I should check them again to be sure. Are the doors locked and bolted? Did I set the alarm? Can anyone get in the house? What was that noise? Do I have a phone by my bedside if I need to call 911? What if I wake up and an intruder is in my room? What will I do? Another repercussion was being unable to sleep alone in a house, any house, even with a house alarm on for most of my life following this attack. It has really been a struggle. I can honestly say that it wasn't until the East Area rapist was captured that my subconscious let me relax a little bit. I was 58 at the time. My sister and I were robbed of our innocence at such an early age in an absolutely horrific way. I was not raped, but my sister was, as she said, multiple times. Certainly, she has carried the heavier burden. I was in another room, tied up tight and gagged during the entire time the East Area rapist was in the house. After he tied me up and threatened to kill me with a knife, he ripped the phone in my room out of the wall and went into my sister's room to tie her up too and commit his most heinous crimes. Uh-oh. Oh, here we go. Your Honor, when you are just 15 and 16 years old, you would never believe or imagine that someone this evil could break into your house and commit crimes like this. My sister and I were good kids, did as we were told throughout our childhoods. That night, before the attack happened, we had locked all the doors, shut off the lights, and were in bed by 11. The East Area rapist wrenched open the locked living room slider at 2 a.m. I experienced physical scars too. Numb hands, wrists, and fingers plagued both me and my sister for months because the defendant tied them so tightly. 2+ hours of being tied up amounted to several months of numbness. I still have a lot of questions I wish could be answered. Why us? How did the defendant know my parents were out of town and that my sister and I were home alone? Had we ever seen him before? Did he take anything from our house, from me, my sister, or my parents? Had he been in our house before that night? Those are incredibly scary questions to ponder. Writing this impact statement has caused me to consider how my life and our family's life would have been different if this crime hadn't happened to us. Certainly, my sister and I would have finished our high school years happier and more carefree, the way you're supposed to live out your life in high school. There would have been 40 less years of nighttime worrying. There would have been far less fear. Beyond that, I cannot know how it would have been different. We cannot know. Despite being a victim of the East Area rapist, I moved forward and onward to live a happy, fulfilling, and meaningful life. I graduated from high school. I graduated from college. I had a successful career. I have made many deep and lasting friendships. I met the love of my life and have been happily married for almost 22 years. I started my own family, and I credit my faith in God for sustaining me through the many ups and downs. The East Area rapist did not have the last word in my life, even though this unexpected, terrifying, and sentinel event blindsided me then. I want the record to reflect that it did not define my life or take away my will to embrace all the good things that my future life experience had to offer. I have gained wisdom, courage, and empathy from each and every challenging experience of my life, including this one. I am grateful to be alive today and to have lived and thrived after this attack. In closing, I am very grateful and relieved that the East Area rapist will spend the rest of his life locked away in a prison cell where he belongs and where he can't hurt anyone else. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, ma'am. Are we prepared to go to count 14? Do you need to switch out? All right, very good. Thank you. Ready to proceed? All right, good. Count 14, the defendant pled guilty to the charge of kidnapping with intent to commit robbery of Jane Doe number 1, having occurred on September 4th, 1976 in the county of Sacramento, a violation of Penal Code Section 209. In addition, the defendant admitted to the uncharged act as follows: rape of Jane Doe number 1 having occurred on September 4th, 1976 in the county of Sacramento, a violation of Penal Code Section 261. Robbery of Jane Doe number 1 having occurred on September 4th, 1976 in the county of Sacramento, a violation of Penal Code Section 211. Is there any victim or victim's family wish to speak as to count 14 or any of the uncharged acts?
Yes, I would like to speak for my mother, Patricia Murphy.
All right, when you are prepared, you may proceed.
Pretty difficult to prepare for this, but very happy. It's been a long time coming. I'd like to apologize to the survivor that was before me if you could overhear me. I didn't mean that. Today is totally, completely appropriate because today is Tuesday and it's the law of karma. So this is my impact statement for my mom, Patricia Murphy. And I don't know what kind of emotions will come out, so we'll find out. Your Honor, it's been 4 decades plus 4 years since James DeAngelo attacked me at my parents' house. It happened during the Labor Day weekend, September 4th, 1976. I was loading a basket full of clean laundry into my car. He came up behind me out of nowhere on that Saturday night. That night forever changed me. I was 29 years old, about the same age as DeAngelo. I was separated from my husband, learning to live on my own after a long marriage. My daughter was 7 years old, and my sons 10 and 14. I had a good job with the state and was enjoying my newfound freedom and independence. But my world was different after the attack. I never felt safe for many years. It was hard for me to trust people. I was always looking over my shoulder, expecting someone to jump out at me. I wonder why he picked me to be one of his rape victims. I'll never know if he came upon me by accident or if he carefully planned out his attack beforehand. Who was he? Did he know my name? Did he know I would be at my parents' house that night? Will he follow me from now on? He punched me in the face and broke my nose. I had a concussion from falling backwards and hitting my head on the driveway. I saw stars. I lost consciousness. He shook me until it soon became clear that he and his knife had complete control over me for the next 2 hours. The trauma of which I am being traded for at this time, I could not escape. I did what I had to do to stay alive. He stole my car and my purse, which meant he knew my own address on my license and registration. Because of that, I moved out of my apartment so he couldn't find me and my children. I was somehow able to get on with my work and being a single mom. I went back to work with the remains of a black eye and a slightly swollen nose. The lump on my nose never went away. I learned to accept that is just part of my face. My coworkers would ask me how I got the black eye, and I would just say, I was mugged. That's what we told our children too. What really happened became a dark secret that I kept buried, except for telling a few close friends. Just wasn't something I wanted to think about, much less talk about. I longed for things to go back to how they were. I pretended life was fine. But it wasn't. It was exhausting. It was hard to find joy. My mind was never at peace. I turned to alcohol and drugs to help blot it all out and numb my pain. How I felt about men changed after that night. I no longer cared if I were seen as attractive. I didn't trust anymore. I am blessed to have married my husband 32 years ago. He is on my healing journey with me. So is my family, except for my parents who have since passed away. My mom didn't want to move, so I continued to visit them there. I celebrated Christmas and other holidays at their house as if nothing ever happened. Sometimes there was no place to sit except on the organ bench he tied me to before he drank my dad's beer and left. I was always afraid that my dad would kill someone he thought could be my attacker. He was out looking for him with other people in the east area of Sacramento. I was diagnosed with complex PTSD soon after DeAngelo's arrest in April 2018. His arrest was a total shock. It stirred up all the painful memories of the past I had learned to block out. I was with my daughter when the news scrolled on my phone. She already knew what happened to me back in 1976. But it was a complete surprise to my sons. The news and its aftermath prompted me to have a mental breakdown, and I was hospitalized 5150 for 3 days in June of that year. I was emotionally exhausted, unstable, and not able to deal with reality. I had trouble sleeping after I found out they caught him. I had vivid nightmares. I was prescribed different medications to deal with my anxiety and depression. I'm now getting therapy from a woman who specializes in treating this type of trauma. Some people are wired wrong, and DeAngelo is one of them. Luck finally ran out for this messed up human being. At least a poor excuse for one. It is my hope that you punish him to the full extent of the law for the horrific crimes he committed. He admitted that he caused all the suffering and misery to so many victims over the past 40 plus years. He truly is an evil monster with no soul. Did his little penis drive him to be so angry all the time? Did he study criminology so he could carry out his evil deeds as a bad cop without getting caught? Did his wife and daughters suspect anything? In closing, I want DeAngelo to end up in a place he deserves. I don't want him to like his surroundings one bit. I don't buy his act that he's on his last legs. The last years of his pitiful life ought to be spent in the worst prison in existence today. I have a favor to ask, though. When you hand down his sentence, please do not address him as sir anymore.
Thank you, ma'am.
That's my mom's.
Does anybody else wish to be heard as to this count 14?
Yes, I have one for myself as
Very
well.
good. Thank you, ma'am.
And I'm going to be respectful to the court. I'm going to admit that I cuss like a sailor or a trucker. I'm going to use initials. You'll know what I'm talking about. If they come out, I do apologize. I have respect for the court. I have respect for you, Honorable Judge Bowman, all of the lawyers here, all of the district attorneys, and the defense attorneys as well.
But this is your moment.
Yes, and also for the defense attorneys as well. Someone has to do this job. and you're willing to do this job. I really, really especially want to thank Maylin and Ann, the victim advocates. They completely advocate for us. And these are my words. These were the words of my mom. If I talk about my mom, they're my words. And I want to thank old friends who've resurfaced to be here to support me. And I'd like to thank new friends that I've met along the way who are also supporting me. It is an honor to be here today. This day has been a very long time coming. Joe raped my mom when I was 7. It broke up our family. My brother lived with us, and then he didn't. My mom was protecting us and couldn't tell us why. We were too young to understand. All I knew is that everything changed overnight. It affected both of my brothers, father, and my whole entire family. It affected all of us. I became my mom's mom. She went from being strong and independent and free to having PTSD. Any loud noise scared her. A backfire from a motorcycle, a firework, a cabinet shutting. Any loud noise was too much to take. Nobody could ever sneak up on my mom. It was just something you knew to never, ever do. Joe tried to take my mom away from me. Maybe it was Jerry. Either way, it didn't work. We are close. We are best friends. And mother-daughter, daughter-mother, we share the same name. When Joe violated her, she was Patricia Cosper. I am Patricia Cosper. I am not Jane Doe. Nor is my beautiful, sweet, strong mom, Patricia Cosper. Joe stole her car. We loved that car. It was super fast and it broke down all the time, but we loved it. He took that too. Joe took trinkets or photos. He drank beer from the fridge and ate snacks from my grandparents' pantry. That was not his intention. He intended harm and suffering. He was ruthless and cunning and patient and powerful. And now he is just locked up. Locked up for life. I would like to read the words of Jesus through Matthew 5:21. You have heard that it was said to the people long ago, you shall not murder, and anyone who murders shall be subject to judgment. He knew better. He was treated extremely poorly as a child, abused and tormented. That is no excuse. Rot in jail, and then rot in prison. Turns out Joe won't be gone in the dark after all. Turns out I don't have to hunt Joseph DeAngelo, Golden State Killer, East Area Rapist, Original Night Stalker, Visalia Ransacker. I don't have to hunt him down after all. Michelle McNamara did that for me. Michelle McNamara, the crime writer, didn't give up. And law enforcement did not give up. She was his final victim. Sorry, I'm almost done.
All right, you take your time.
I see her as a survivor because she got him caught. Her spirit survived. She got him caught. She did not give up, and now you rot. And you're not feeble. He's not feeble. And he's also a pedophile. Anybody who rapes anybody who's not of age is a pedophile and a rapist and a murderer. I'm only here because of the imprisonment, the false imprisonment, the rape of the statutes of limitations is over. So due to the fact that he tied up my mom and took her from room to room to room in my grandparents' home, the very first place I ever visited out of the hospital, the only place there was actually some happy memories of some happy family stuff going on. So I would just ask also to get him away from me because since I've been 7, he's been around. And then working in Roseville, living in Citrus Heights. I think he should go to the worst prison. I also think he should get away from Sacramento. I'm glad that we're here today. It is the capital. He violated the whole state. But if there's any county where he didn't do his damage, either way, it doesn't matter. He's never getting out. And this is my beautiful mom and my grandma and myself. And my grandfather was out looking for you to kill you. And let me just tell you, if my grandma got her hands on you, she would have killed you with her own bare hands. But you just keep doing your jumping jacks and your push-ups and your sit-ups and your stuff. So I'm going to sing a little song. It's really short. It's what my grandpa used to sing when we would say goodbye to somebody. And it goes like this. Bye-bye, Joe, bye-bye. Bye-bye, Joe, don't cry. And Joseph DeAngelo and his mother can go straight to hell. This is for him. I know he can't look at me, and he was blocked during this, whatever his plea thing was. But I mean this, obviously I haven't been able to forgive yet. I think after all this, after Friday, I'll be able to forgive. But in the meanwhile, this is what I have for him. Not you, defenders. Him in the orange. The subhuman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. I understand that the next scheduled victim to speak is going to be moved to Wednesday morning. Is that true?
Yes, that's correct, Your Honor. The next one will be moved to Wednesday.
All right, thank you.
You may have a moment to transition.
Certainly. We ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Furthermore, the defendant admitted to the uncharged acts as follows. Rape of Jane Doe, number 22, having occurred on October 18th, 1976 in the County of Sacramento, a violation of Penal Code Section 261. False imprisonment of Jane Doe, number 22, on October 18th, 1976 in the County of Sacramento, a violation of Penal Code Section 236. Is there any victim or member of a victim's family that wish to be heard as to those uncharged acts?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead, sir.
First of all, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to be here. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Pete Schultz, and I'm here with my two daughters on behalf of our mother, my sister, and my father to read our family victim statement for the record. We wish to thank all of the amazing law enforcement personnel, district attorneys, research persons, and retired personnel whose long-term commitment to this case have made this day possible for all those who have suffered because of this sick monster. On October 18th, 1976, Joseph DeAngelo entered our home in Carmichael, California. I was 11 years old, my sister was 5, and we were sleeping peacefully with our mother. Do you remember me? DeAngelo woke us up, tied me to the bedpost till my hands turned blue, locked my sister in her room, and performed horrific acts against my mother while she was bound and blindfolded. We have lived with this for 44 years as a family, and we are here to say that our mother is not Jane Doe number 22, and we are not just number 37 uncharged offense. We are the family of Winnie Schultz, and we have all survived because of her bravery and resolve to do whatever it took to save herself and her family. It may be uncharged because of the statute of limitations, but she will never be Jane Doe 22, and she will be Winnie Schultz, survivor who protected her family and had the courage and the bravery to survive that night. It took many years to get back to a sense of normalcy, with my dad sleeping with a baseball bat, my sister sleeping under the bed. But we moved on as a family. Winnie is a college graduate. She was an elementary school teacher. She was a ski instructor at Squaw Valley. She survived breast cancer, and she's also a recent stroke survivor. She is still married to my dad after 55 years. They celebrate this Friday. She raised 2 great children, and myself and my sister, Jenny, and has 4 amazing grandchildren. Our case was the 7th in Sacramento area and is known as the case that brought public awareness to the growing danger and the nature of these ongoing serial crimes. Winnie told the investigating officers who asked if she had any recognizable scars or tattoos that her head was covered the whole time and she was bound. But she was certain he had a very inadequate penis. DeAngelo may have stolen our mother's wedding ring, her jewelry, and $250 in donation monies I had collected intended for the American Cancer Society. But he did not steal our hopes, dreams, and the spirit of our family. We grieve for those victims who were less fortunate and lost loved ones. While we all have suffered for 44 years, your suffering, sir, has just begun. God bless all the victims, their loving families, and all the dedicated law enforcement professionals who have made this day possible and gave us this opportunity. Sincerely, Winnie Schultz and family. And for me, a tribute to my mother for her courage, her bravery, her good sense of humor, her love. And because of her, we've all been inspired to go on and to enjoy our lives. And may she enjoy the sun on her face, the love in her heart, listening to her grandkids talk on the phone, enjoying a nice cup of coffee, and sleeping well tonight knowing that you are gone and the boogeyman is done. I love you, Mom. Thank you, Your Honor, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr.
Appreciate it.
Schultz.
Thank you.
Your Honor, we are a bit ahead of schedule at this point. The next victim will speak via video, and so if we could take our morning break to set that up, Your Honor.
All right, folks,
Thank
we're
you.
going to go ahead and take a morning recess. We'll reconvene close as we can to about 5 minutes after 10.
DNA would be obtained from their struggle. Her defiance produced evidence. The first time he hit her, she said, "You call that a hit?" The second, "You don't hit." At one point, she actually got her hand on his gun. The only thing that kept her from pulling the trigger was the fear that she'd shoot herself and leave me with the monster. She was this close. He told my mother if she didn't stop fighting him, he was going to cut off my ear and bring it to her. I did sleep through her attack. I remember waking up confused, wondering why she didn't come and help me get up for school, get ready. And then I felt it. Something heavy, something dark, something very wrong. I turned the corner out of my bedroom and saw a dark figure with a ski mask at the end of the hallway. He was blocking the doorway to my parents' bedroom. He was shorter and smaller than my father. I couldn't make sense of it. I never will. I knew he was bad. Even as a child, I could sense evil. Then all hell broke loose. My mother was screaming, "Leave her alone, she's only a 7-year-old little girl," again and again and again, alarming me that danger was present, but I already knew. I ran to her voice, even with the monster guarding the doorway. I was stunned when I saw my mother bound, gagged, blindfolded, tied up on the bed. I looked up at him and growled, "You're a bad man. Take your gun and your knife and leave my family alone." He put his gun down and he led me out of my mother's view into the bathroom to tie my wrists. I knew he was taunting her. He said, "Tell your mother I'm not hurting you." I lied and did as I was told. Then he put me next to her and tied my legs. He left the bedroom to ransack the house. I used my teeth to get the gag out of her mouth. He returned to taunt us some more. Once we felt he might be truly gone, we hopped outside to our fence and screamed for help. Our neighbor saw us, shocked. He ran to get something to cover my mother and called the police. That's when we both really lost it. That's when it was safe to fall apart. We began sobbing profusely. Then things shifted into high gear. Law enforcement was everywhere, and our house was covered in black powder. The kindest neighbor lady took me to her house. It was quiet and calm. She made me tea and gently massaged lotion into my wrists and legs, which were still sore and red with indents from plastic cords. That was the day that I knew I had proof. Monsters were real. I had met the boogeyman. He had broken into my house. The defendant was a sadist. After the attack, life would never be quite as carefree. There was a lot of acting like everything was okay, but things were far from okay. Something lingered in the shadows. Our sense of normalcy, our sense of safety, that had been raped too. We built a backyard fence, installed an alarm system with a panic button in the master bedroom. Boards were installed in the windows and sliding doors. We'd wedge chairs under bedroom doors at night. Guns and other weapons were at the ready. Bedtime routines now consisted of lock, alarm, and closet checks. This would go for whenever we returned home. There was a dark cloud hanging over my family. Some days the tension was more palpable than others, but a lot of times it seemed like we were holding our breath. The defendant would call and harass my mother for quite some time. The detectives installed an answering machine on our phone, and we put a whistle next to it. My parents would eventually divorce, and my mother and I would eventually move out of our dream home. She was still receiving creepy calls 10 years after the attack. As a child, I actually almost wanted the monster to return. This time I'll be ready, I told myself. I slept with knives under my pillow and kept scissors in my pockets. I had backup plans on top of backup plans. I fantasized about having a second chance to kill him because I froze the first time. I didn't grab his gun when he put it down to tie my wrists. I don't even think I'd so much as shot a toy gun, but I was preparing in my mind. I felt I'd failed at my job to save my mother and protect my family. I wanted a do-over, an opportunity to right the wrongs and see that justice got served. Injustice has always been a hot button for me. I hate seeing evil people get away with evil deeds. My name is Lisa Marie Lilienthal, and I am Jane Doe number 28. I would come to know the defendant, the monster, as the East Area Rapist. As a direct result of the heinous actions of the defendant, I have plenty of scars. No child should have to question if God forgot about her and her family. Ultimately, this was a shattering of innocence. Physical wounds heal, but the body holds trauma on a cellular level, and I carry plenty of residual effects. Psychologically, I don't always feel like I'm a fully functional human being a lot of the time. I've struggled with anxiety and depression, been diagnosed with PTSD by many doctors. I'm definitely OCD, especially in regards to my safety. I double check alarms, locks, my surroundings, and second guess myself. I absolutely have control issues and can get overly anxious, particularly in situations where I feel trapped, powerless, and out of control. And to this day, I still have night terrors, even more this summer. Financially, I've spent countless hours and money on therapy and medication to work through these issues. I'm at a point now where I do know my triggers, and I will continue to fight towards my own balance and stability. For years, I thought it's only a matter of time before he's caught. The detectives were so dedicated and driven, and so many people are involved in the seeing of justice being done. A few years ago, I resigned myself to the fact that I may never hear about his capture, that I may never get closure. Maybe he died, or has been killed, incarcerated for something else, fled the country, and then lo and behold, the monster gets sloppy and gets caught. He was Hannibal Lecter to me, a cunning, manipulative sociopath. There was even speculation he had military or law enforcement background. This made him even more despicable in my mind. But the moment I saw a picture of him, it was as if some sick version of the Wizard of Oz's curtains dropped. His terrifying persona came crashing down. The monster of my childhood nightmares was gone, and I was looking at this feeble, pathetic little man. His eyes looked soulless, vacant, and hollow, void of any emotion, lacking answers or explanations I'd hoped for. But then again, what explanation is there for any of this? How do you make sense out of so many senseless situations? This doesn't feel like true closure or real justice to me. It feels like kind of an empty win, but I'll still take it. True justice is that this horror show never would have started. Nothing can erase the past, but I'm sure glad to see him caught. He's always had a script, and he hasn't stopped acting. He's a Jekyll and Hyde master manipulator, and his mask is still on. He's been acting like a normal human being for a long time now, acting like he was serving his country, protecting and serving, acting like a husband, a father, a neighbor, and on it goes. He's no longer Hannibal Lecter to me. Lecter didn't get caught. He will go down in history as being less than, not measuring up on every level, a mere fraction of a man. I know that I am lucky, that it could have been much worse for me. I did not come out of this war unscathed, but I did survive it. I am a survivor. I will not wallow in my past. It will not define or own me. In fact, no one was ever owned.
All right, thank you. We'll make that video part of the record as well. Or was there anybody else that wished to be heard as to that uncharged act, Mr. Hull?
As to that, no.
In February 1977, the defendant broke into our home. He broke in after my father left home.
I'm sorry, Mr. Hull, go ahead, sir.
No, Your Honor, not as to that uncharged count.
All right, very good, thank you. Move on to the next act. Defendant admitted to an uncharged act as follows: rape of Jane Doe, number 24, having occurred on December 18th, 1976 in the County of Sacramento, violation Penal Code Section 261. False imprisonment of Jane Doe, number 24, having occurred on December 18th, 1976 in the County of Sacramento, violation Penal Code Section 236. Is there any victim or victim's family member that wishes to be heard at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Proceed when you're ready.
Thank you. Your Honor, my name is Chris Pedretti, and thank you for allowing me to share the impact that Joseph James DeAngelo had on me the night he raped and threatened constantly to kill me. As the evening began on December 18th, 1976, I was a normal 15-year-old kid. I loved going to school, having sleepovers, and going to church. It was 1 week away from Christmas. Our house was decorated, and I was having fun Christmas shopping for my friends and my family. My world was small, predictable, and safe. But by the time that night came to an end, my world changed forever. My safety was shattered as a masked man, DeAngelo, yielding a knife, told me he would kill me if I didn't do what he demanded. He raped me repeatedly, moving me in and out of the house after each time. He made himself comfortable in my home, and he stole my family's personal belongings as I lay helpless or sat tied, gagged, blindfolded, and naked in the cold December night, waiting for what unthinkable act he would violate me with next. He tormented me, and he told me over and over again he would kill me, and I believed him. At 3 different times that night, I thought I was going to die. I sang "Jesus Loves Me" in my head as I waited to die. The next morning, December 19th, I woke up knowing I would never be a child again. And although I was truly grateful to be alive, I also felt that I had died. I didn't understand what had just happened or why it happened. I didn't understand what kind of God would allow this to happen to me when I tried so hard to be good. I didn't understand why I didn't have friends anymore, or why my parents told me to never talk about that day, the day I was raped, tormented, and accepted that it would be my last. I couldn't make sense of any of it. Try to act normal. Try to act normal, I would tell myself. But what was normal? I certainly didn't feel normal. Nothing felt normal. I was forced to begin an unending journey alone to try to survive in a world where nothing was as it was just hours before. So much had changed in such a short time. I no longer fit where I did before. And although I tried, I would not be a normal teenager again. The next year, because I no longer fit in, I changed schools 3 times, moved to a new city, and I quit going to church. Because I was not allowed to talk about being raped, to get help, or to heal, I was forced to live my life like the rape never happened. Acting like it never happened required me to step out of my person, to leave my childhood behind, and to step into a life that wasn't mine. I struggled the next 41 years with extreme panic attacks, failed relationships, frequent job changes, unhealthy coping mechanisms, and few friends. I think it's incredibly ironic that DeAngelo only had daughters and a granddaughter. No sons, no grandsons. If I were able to address DeAngelo, I would ask him to imagine his wife, daughters, and granddaughter at 15 years old. Then imagine them being tied, gagged, and blindfolded as they were being raped, tormented, and fearful for their life by an unknown masked assailant who held the power over their life or death as he raped them and threatened them for hours. I would ask him how he would have reacted coming home to the crime scene that my parents and my sister came home to. How would he be able to watch helplessly as they struggled to make sense of what they did to deserve such a devastating act of hate? How it would permeate the core of their very being. I understand that no amount of therapy can bring back those years to me the way they were supposed to be. DeAngelo stole my formative years. He stole my youth, my innocence, my faith, and my trust. Who could I have grown up to be? I guess I'll never know. And as I look at him today, I see a pathetic coward and a deplorable shell of barely human material. He tried to conceal his soulless being from others by becoming a husband, a father, and a grandfather. He used and manipulated his own family so that he could look like a regular guy as he enjoyed his malignant life once they all went to bed feeling safe in the make-believe world that he created. His family has been forced to walk a torturous and undeserved journey as they learned the East Area rapist Golden State Killer's identity, Joseph James DeAngelo, her husband, their dad, her grandpa. DeAngelo has guaranteed his family will never escape the stain of his name and his infamy. These innocent people do not deserve to carry his humiliation, yet they have no choice. If I could speak directly to DeAngelo, I would ask him, do you feel any remorse for what you did to me? For the people whose lives you sadistically cut short? Or for the years of pain to your victims and their family? Do you finally feel humiliated? Your secrets have been exposed. Your double life is over. The world, and I mean the entire world, knows who you are and what you did. You will forever be known as a repulsive coward who hid behind a mask of evil. The devil can keep you company in your prison cell as he gnaws away at whatever soul you have left, at whatever life you have left. It brings me great satisfaction to see you in your assigned orange jumpsuit, powerless and handcuffed in all aspects of your already miserable life. You hid in plain sight, but you are now visible for everyone to despise, loathe, and abhor. You are finally getting what you deserved all along. Understand, DeAngelo, there's not a prayer strong enough to save you. Your Honor, once again, thank you for allowing me to share how DeAngelo's burnt soul has invaded my life. Though I have found my way to a happy and safe life once again, DeAngelo deserves his sentence of life without parole in the most dark and lonely containment. If I had my way, DeAngelo would only be provided our impact statements as reading material for the rest of his days. DeAngelo must not be allowed to ignore what he has done for as long as he breathes. For decades, he lived free in the same neighborhood that I lived in, as well as many others. He was free while each of his victims and their families lived in pain, often nearby. Who knows how many times I passed him in the grocery store or sat near him at a restaurant, oblivious to the fact that the rapist who took so much from me was only a few feet away. There are parts of me that spent more than 4 decades alone, entrapped in a virtual hell that DeAngelo sentenced me to in 1976, from which I could not escape. I used to wonder why I was chosen to be his victim. It used to keep me up at night. It was the only question I had for him. Why? What could I have done differently to create a different ending that night? It is only since his capture that I have found freedom from his evil. I'm forever grateful for the support I have received through love and caring of my family and friends, through therapy, meeting and sharing experiences with other survivors, support from the victim advocates, and reaching out to other victims of rape that have long kept their silence for fear of being ostracized. Standing here today, the knowledge that DeAngelo will spend the rest of his life in prison for his heinous acts has ended my dark journey so that I may begin a new one. So where will this new journey lead me? This experience has taught me the importance of supporting those that have been sexually assaulted. I spent years, decades really, feeling shame and guilt for what happened to me. And yet it wasn't my fault. It was something that was done to me, not because of me. Through this experience, I have learned how utterly important it is to be able to express out loud in some manner, whether verbally or in writing, that the shame and guilt belongs to the rapist, not the victim. Most importantly, saying it out loud reinforces that we did not deserve to be raped. We did nothing wrong, no matter what the circumstance. The sheer act of stating it out loud to others who understand and have had similar experiences is liberating in a way that most cannot comprehend. Today, right now, I start my new journey. I've received overwhelming support from so many people. It's time to pay it forward. I hope to provide support to those as so many have done for me. It truly has changed my life. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So is anybody else wish to be heard as to that uncharged act?
Not as to that uncharged offense, Your Honor.
All right, we're going to move on to count 15 at this time.
Yes, may we have a moment to transition?
Sure.
Thank you.
Who's prepared to go forward?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very
We
good,
are.
thank you. Count 15, Mr. DeAngelo entered a guilty plea to the charge of kidnapping with intent to commit robbery of Jane Doe number 2, having occurred on April 2nd, 1977, in Sacramento County, violation of Penal Code Section 209. In addition, defendant admitted to the following uncharged acts: rape of Jane Doe number 2, having occurred on April 2nd, 1977, in the County of Sacramento, violation of Penal Code Section 261, robbery of Jane Doe number 2 and John Doe number 1, having occurred on April 2nd, 1977, in the County of Sacramento, violation of Penal Code Section 211, false imprisonment of Jane Doe number 2 and John Doe number 1, having occurred on April 2nd, 1977, in the County of Sacramento, violation of Penal Code Section 236. Does any victim or victim's family wish to be heard as to count 15 or any of the uncharged acts?
Yes, Your Honor. My name is Carol Daly, and I'm here as a support person for Kathy Rogers, and she has asked me to read her statement. She is standing here with me today.
Very good.
DeAngelo was the ultimate predator, and I was unprepared for what was to occur on April 2nd, 1977, as DeAngelo had honed his skills by this time. This man stalked me, knew my routine, the layout of my house, and even my dog, and I never knew. I suppose in his sickness, he felt that we should be honored that he took so much time and care preparing before introducing himself. He must have felt so superior by having such complete control of our every move. How powerful and alive he must felt as it ultimately became an addiction, terrorizing victims for what seemed like an eternity, with him leaving, then returning, and leaving once more and returning yet again. As for me, I remember thinking in horror that my kids might wake up and find me dead. The terror was more than I could ever put into words. I won't elaborate on the details of the actual attack, as you will hear them over and over from so many others. Thankfully, my young children slept through the attack. As the sun came up, my son was able to get help by crawling out his bedroom window and running to the neighbor's home. I'm saddened with the thought that this event is part of my children's childhood memories. Afterward, my children and I stayed at a neighbor's home who was kind enough to take us in. Being concerned about being identified as a victim, I pulled myself together and returned to work after a couple of days. I told no one what happened except my supervisor. I recall overhearing coworkers commenting on the attack that they would not have allowed that to happen to them, which was very upsetting. In reality, when there are life and death consequences on the line, you never know what you would do until you are actually in that situation. Moving forward, I have never thought of myself as a victim, although it's part of my history. Although it took time and work, I did not let his temporary control over me control the outcome of my life. Today, I am blessed with a husband who is truly my best friend, and a great children who mostly like me. My husband confided that he felt the need to say something on my behalf today, but in the truth, he's been there for me over 40 years. I feel fortunate that life has been good, except for a few bumps along the way. Lastly, I want to thank all who have worked countless hours on this case and never gave up the pursuit of the predator. Thank you for caring. As for DeAngelo, I feel my best revenge is to live my life. The monster has been unmasked and is no longer of any consequence. I am leaving him behind. The nightmare has ended. He is the one forever alone in the dark.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Daly, also thank you for your dedication in this case as well.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. The following statement will be a little different from the rest. My mother is not a victim. Just a few years after the attack, my mother and father met. They gave birth to my brother. They gave birth to my brother and I. But rather than talk about what happened to her, we chose to use this time and address DeAngelo and the survivors. It's titled, My Mother's Gift. A box sits in front of you. My mother wrapped it herself. She always was the best wrapper at Christmas, don't you think? Would you like to open it? But first, just a couple quick words. What words would you choose, and how would you arrange them in a way that makes sense to someone like him? Think for a moment. How do you capture the essence of pain and destruction this person has caused? What would you say, Judge? Bailiff? How do you capture that amount of destruction? Luckily, by and large, we have the luxury of not knowing a person like him, because for the most part, they don't exist. Maybe that's why I'm struggling to find the right words. I can use curse words and demonstrate my anger, but those actually don't really mean anything. Instead, I'll try to attempt the high wire act of reasoning with him. One involves that navigating his life experience. By default, people are loving, caring, and genuinely take into account the feelings and well-being of others. The ability to see yourself in others is nature's truly gift to humanity. This is all made possible by consciousness. Consciousness is the foundation of the basis of moral agency, which is the ability to disseminate right from wrong. This is what separates us from wild animals and their behavior. What it must be to be like you. Thankfully, I will never know. What I do know is that you've managed to live a life not worth living. That's pretty hard to do. There's thousands of ways people seek meaning and purpose, and you didn't find one, just the illusion of one. Think about that for a moment. You've managed to live an entire life not worth living. Controlling other people, given the right circumstances, is likely the only times at which you felt alive. This isn't just some artful jab. Let me put this in perspective for you for just a moment. Think about all the bad people that live, that are alive today. Con artists that swindled the elderly out of their life savings, reserved for the final gift of inheritance, or say spouses lying to each other in court over a custody battle, or even fraudsters creating fake charities disguised as legitimate, who rob people of their own good. These are clearly some of society's worst people. Hell, we would gladly take these people every day of the week if the world wouldn't produce another morally bankrupt person like yourself. In a world where we strive to find meaning, you've managed to squander just about all of it. Thankfully, everyone other than you has this choice. In fact, many of you listening will exercise that freedom today. When I say we, everyone other than you can do this at a moment's notice. The ability to redefine what it is that you find importance, whether it be through relationships, political discourse, charity work, profound life experience. It is what it means to be yourself. All of which intrinsically serves the purpose of cultivating and reshaping the reality that serves the people of your community. We all have this voice inside of our head. Haven't you noticed? This voice slash conversation you have been having your entire life is long overdue for an audit. What has yours been telling you? Maybe we should ask, say, Robert, or maybe Deborah, or how about Charlene? Or maybe Lyman. Maybe we could ask Keith or Patrice. You know them, don't you? Since they are unavailable, we maybe ask Manuela, Sherry, Gregory, or even Janelle. Maybe they can vouch for your sanity. The 13 people that you killed had a voice, not just the voice that the family members knew, but the voice inside of them that made them good people and everyone that they knew. You've been a witness to and subjected to your moral bankrupt voice and chose to do nothing to stop it. For this reason, I hold you particularly responsible. If you haven't noticed, this audit isn't going very well. Where have you been your entire life? Let me help you. Imagine flipping a regular coin and it lands on heads 1,000 times in a row. Must be a double-sided coin. No. You simply just didn't realize that tails exist. You have just incomplete evidence. This is what it must be to be like you. And this must be true. Otherwise, you couldn't fathom the notion of taking a life of your own. A lot of people might wish to carry out the death penalty themselves. Can't you see the sentence has already been given? You've been robbed of your entire life, yet you're too stupid to notice. You are the example of how someone could be alive, but never born. Think about that for a moment. You are the example of someone who could be alive, yet never born. Given the right opportunity, any of your 3 daughters would have smothered you at birth, only to be saved by the fear of resembling their own father. Your family has shut the door to you. Now the door is knocking. Death is upon you, and soon the sun will set, and with you in it. The only question remains, what is taking so long? Is it not obvious? It's because your life has not been worth taking. And now back to my opening sentence. There's a box in front of you. My mother has been waiting to give it to you for 43 years. Did you find out what was inside? Or perhaps who is inside? Do you see my mother's gift now? If you can only see just one hypothetical box, you've missed the point entirely. The answer's been right in front of you. Signed by my mother, the victims, and their families. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ask the people, was there anybody else that wished to be heard as to count 15?
Yes, sir. If we could have a moment, we need to do a setup with the camera.
Absolutely. And is this also the last person scheduled before lunch?
Yes, Your Honor. Last one.
Don't worry, mine will be shorter. I'm speaking today in loving support of my wife, Kathy. Although she was brutally attacked by Joseph DeAngelo in 1977, I can tell you that little Joe DeAngelo did not destroy her life as he tried to do to so many others. I did not meet Kathy till about a year after the attack, but I can attest to the fact that she is one of the strongest women I have ever known. While her encounter with Joe DeAngelo left an emotional scar, he did not destroy our lives, nor our lives together. We have chosen to make each day count for something better and to love, laugh, enjoy our lives. My wife, Kathy, has overcome her painful encounter with this monster. Our marriage is built on love, not hate, and we choose daily to look forward, not backward, at something that tragically happened over 40 years ago. Contrast that with the life of Joe DeAngelo, who spent his entire adult life lost in a murderous resentment because of a rejection from a college girlfriend. She saw something in him that told her to run, and she wisely did so. Poor little Joe could not let go of that rejection, and his bitterness allowed the devil himself to transform him into a monster, lost in his own dark demonic world. Kathy, on the other hand, suffered something far worse than a college romantic rejection. And when faced with the choice to become bitter, resentful, and hateful for what wrongfully and viciously happened to her, she instead chose to love, care for others every day of her life since that horrific encounter. He pathetically took his bitterness out on others, raping, torturing, murdering, ripping apart lives, families, and memories. He lived a lie as a police officer sworn to uphold the law. Instead, he chose to become lawless. And he lived a lie as a father and husband. In fact, DeAngelo's family are the last victims of the Golden State Killer. His 3 daughters, ex-wife, grandchildren are ones who will be tortured and terrorized by the man's actions for generations to come. If he has no remorse or guilt for the victims, he should look at what he's done to his family. The pain he's brought to his family will weigh on his soul the rest of his life. Despite their father's actions, I hope his family will rise and make something good of this tragedy, like my wife and I have. We have chosen to close the door on the memory of this monster forever. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ho, is that all the survivors we have left until after lunch?
That is correct. The rest are scheduled for this afternoon, Your Honor.
And folks, you never know how long these statements will generally take, and we try to schedule them as most convenient for you all as we could, but we ran out of people to hear this morning. We're going to go ahead and take our lunch recess, and we'll see y'all back here at 1:30. Thank you.